here today, and today I wanted to talk to you about big picture thinking, or what I also like to call holistic thinking. So, how did I get upon this? Well, essentially, I had an experience a while ago where essentially all these questions that stem from essentially, am I making the right choices? Am I in the right faith? Am I having and holding the right beliefs? Am I being the best person I can be? And essentially empowering myself to be the best version I can be. All these issues essentially culminated into this moment of intense angst where I felt like if my entire body was literally just paralyzed, vibrating in anxiety and waves of, confusion and angst, right? And then, as soon as that was over, what came later, or what followed, was this surreal moment of peace, clarity, and essentially a feeling like if I knew the world, like if I knew life on a level that I had never, ever experienced before. So, with this essentially came new beliefs and new ideas and new ways of seeing the world. One of it, which is essentially, as I mentioned, this idea of a big picture, right? What this essentially means is that I am able to never ever get caught up by any moment or any stressful event or situation, because I realize that on the big picture, right, when you look at your life and maybe the upcoming 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, this moment that you're so worked up about is going to be absolutely meaningless. Like, it's so funny to think about the fact that we gripe and get pissed over the stupidest shit, but literally next week we will forget about that moment. We will forget about the fact that we even got mad in the first place, right? So big picture thinking essentially puts things in perspective and shows me that on the larger scale, right, on the long-term view, looking at it with a long-term vision, things really don't matter. And so there's absolutely no need to ever get worked up or get caught up by any sort of negativity or hardship or trying or stressful event, because literally it is just one wave. It's just one moment in your life. It's just one intense experience of strong emotions or strong feelings or trying event, right? Like, it's a huge obstacle, but then it's gone, literally. So there's no need to make a fuss about it. Actually doing so is just furthering the waste of time and energy that you would have decided to choose to do throughout your life. Right, so big picture thinking essentially allows me to be really flexible and move forward and move through issues and things really, really quick, right? Like, because of that, I'm essentially never, I don't get those feelings of, my life is over, I'm gonna kill myself, when people let me down or deceive me or etc. I just don't, because I'm like, well, these guys, they're probably wounded birds. If you have read my article, definitely check that out. But I just see people as wounded birds. And it's like, when someone's like that, they're probably not even aware of the bullshit or how terrible of a person they're being. Like, they probably can't even begin to fathom or see their destructive behavior. Like, they literally cannot see it. It's like a blind person or a person that has to wear glasses. Without glasses, they literally cannot see. And that's how these people are as well. So there's no point in getting caught up in whatever drama they're throwing at you. Because it's like water under the bridge. It's like watching a capricious child throwing a tantrum or throwing a fit. Like, you don't lower yourself to that child's level and start, like, getting in arguments with a child. You're just like, haha, come on, baby, you know I love you. Just chill, it's okay. And you soothe and baby the child and essentially deploy love and empathy. And by that, because they're in that pit of darkness, which essentially is negativity, which is essentially this idea that forces us or causes us to see one or each other separate from one another, which causes us to essentially stupidly not trust or not respect or not love or not extend ourselves for the other person like we would for our family, for our son, for our own daughter. It is literally a phantom, right? And the only antidote to this phantom is love, because love is like a light, and it just shines and clears the fucking darkness, as gay as that sounds. Like, it really does. And so when someone is being a dick or an asshole, instead of just being an asshole back, just love them and be like, hey bro, I know you might be going through some stuff, but just be chill, you know? Or just be like, yo, I love you. Or when they're insulting you, say thank you. And it's almost like an icebreaker, and it just completely short circuits them, because they're not expecting that. Their mind is so enraptured in pain that it's literally just seeking a reason to stay in that state of mind. It's literally seeking a reason to stay in pain and to create and produce more pain chemicals, to produce more serotonin. And so that's why they have those weird behaviors towards you. So by literally counteracting that with love, you essentially cut that process, you cut that loop, and you essentially, it's almost like reminding them how awesome they are and how unnecessary their bullshit is. So when you say that and you say, hey man, I still love you, they literally feel so bad, because they're like, man, like, I didn't even need to say and do all that. Was I being a dick? And they literally become aware. Like, they wake up and they come to the realization of their wrong behavior. And it's so beautiful seeing that moment every single time, because it's one of those things that's like, you know, like they say, the small things in life. And it's like one of those things that just perpetually reminds you how amazing human beings are, and how actually naturally, or how we're essentially actually designed and meant to be cooperative and social and working together and loving one another instead of fighting. So that's essentially how Big Picture shows you or empowers you to put things into perspective, take things easy, and be more carefree and open, while essentially empowering you with the patience, love, and compassion needed to help pull other people who are in that pit. Because I always say, when you're in that darkness, logic doesn't make sense, reason doesn't make sense. They can't even hear it, because the feeling of pain is so overwhelming. Only love and essentially making them feel good will force them out of it, because it's something that is making them feel something completely different to what they have been feeling before. And that's how you become their game changer, right? So that's big picture thinking. Now, I also wanted to talk about holistic thinking, or what I like to call the grandfather frame, essentially saying there is a place for all in this world. So essentially, it's saying that people have to learn to realize, and kind of tying into the wounded bird idea, that everyone is a wounded bird. But furthermore, going an extra step, everyone can be seen as family. That person or that girl or that guy can be seen as your, or should be seen as your brother, as your son, as your daughter. Because in some way they are. In some way they are a literal representation of your family, of your son, of your father. They might not look exactly like him or at all, but the fact that they're a human being makes it so. Furthermore, I always like to say, treat others, or do the things that you would like others to do for you. So, wouldn't you like someone to treat you like if you were family, right? Wouldn't you like someone to go that extra mile and that extra step, taking care of you and loving you just as if you were related to them? I would. And so because of that, why not see everyone in that way? When you do, it's almost like magical things happen. First of all, you gain greater compassion and patience. You're able to be more tolerable and essentially be slower to anger or lashing out or reacting to people's bullshit, because you realize they're just hurt, right? So, like your grandchild, you wouldn't get snippy at her. You would just be like, "Aw, come here, baby," and put her on your lap, and then just console her and soothe her and be like, "Here's the candy," etc. And I feel like that same approach, by doing that to people you meet, you're essentially creating bridges and opening up opportunities for worlds, cultures, races to meet, exchange, and interact with each other on a deeper level than what's ever done, or than what's ever been possible, right? So I feel like also the fact that you recognize that that person is a human being essentially puts you in a position where favorable or fortunate or lucky events and chance and things like that, good tidings occur to you. Because I always say, when you do good to others, good is done to you, right? Even further, when you go the extra mile for others, especially when it's not necessary, or you will never get recognition for it, or no one will ever know, that is when that, whatever it is you're doing, that value is multiplied and tripled and blessed and comes back to you in ways that you never would have expected, right? So, on top of this essentially grandfather mindset or frame, you also have what I call a more 360 or global worldview. What this means is, instead of just being so rigid in your ways, maybe your beliefs and your religion, you're able to actually open your heart and create space. Essentially recognizing that, yes, although I hold my religion to be the truth, because I am aware of the fact that reality is so multidimensional, that there are, as they say, so many roads, or a lot of roads, or all roads lead to Rome. Essentially saying, there's so many ways to do something. There's so many ways to live your life. There are so many ways to attack a problem or create a solution for a problem. There are so many ways to think about life. There are so many different perspectives and lenses. And because of that wide, vast, endless, never-ending variety that the world, because of its magnitude, the fact that it's so big, like people don't realize how big our world actually is and how much we actually have. Because of that, it's almost like you're called to be tolerable. You're called to be respectable, even curious about other cultures and religion. Because I fully believe, and mark my words, that the reason why there's so many religions is because essentially God, or however you want to call it, decided to come down and speak to us in the form that we would most relate, identify, and understand him in, right? So if you're Jewish, he would come in the form of a Jew. If you're a Muslim, he would come in the form of a Muslim, right? If you are Christian, he would come in the form of a Christian, right? Or if you're Hindu, he would come in the form, etc., 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 right? Because if you look at it, all religions are essentially saying the same message. Love one like yourself. That is literally what you can boil the principal message of all religions out there. And understanding that, coming to that awareness, I realized that, holy shit, what if not only are they essentially trying, not only was God essentially trying to speak to us, like us and our different cultures and groups and races, in our native tongues, but he was also creating or hoping to implant in us the seed to where we would later on come together and share the lessons and experiences and knowledge and wisdom that one religion preaches or practices that another does not, right? Like, for example, as a Catholic, we don't talk about mind training, right? Or we don't talk about the idea of karma or the idea of dependent arising, right? Things that literally changed my life on ways that I will never be able to word, right? Yet we don't have that in Catholicism. And so that is the value and the beauty that Buddhism is for me, because it introduces new ideas, new perspective, new tools, and ways of looking at life that I would never have had the blessing or opportunity to experience because of my particular upbringing, right? And same thing for the Muslim faith, right? Essentially, the praying multiple times a day, right? And how there's actually effects that it has on the body and the life force, right? Praying at different times of the day, right? And even their practices and rituals that you can't find anywhere else that they could potentially teach us, right? So that's how I see faith and religion. I think it's something that is beautiful and should be shared and talked and discussed about. Not something that, like, I am the one true and the others are false. Because I feel like we're essentially completely missing the point when we do that, right? As a young Polish priest taught me a long time ago, Father Conrad, he said that the beauty as human beings is our ability to communicate in language and experience, because your ideas and your beliefs are directly based upon your experience. So what you believe to be true, you believe it because you experienced it, and that is how they're true, right? And because of that, it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it's amazing because it creates opportunity for people to have unique experiences. What I experience, you might not ever be able to experience, right? But because of communication and language, I'm able to share those lessons, and you're able to partake and learn from that experience without ever having to go through the pain, tears, blood, sweat, and hardships that I went through. And that is our literal blessing for one another. And it truly blows my mind every single fucking day when I think about this, and yet still realize how a lot of, I guess, religions or religious elders are still stuck on the whole, who's right, one true religion, the one true. Like, it's like we've been through so many things together as human beings, like 2 world wars, and we're still at that point. Come on. So anyways, it's a blessing in that way. It's also a curse because our beliefs and our ideas are directly based on our experience, we are prone to believing that our truth is the one and only truth. And that is where we fail, because, as I mentioned, reality is so multidimensional that you can chop it and see it in so many different ways, and that is the beauty. So I believe that we should actually focus on exploring, appreciating, and sinking our teeth into that beauty instead of essentially fighting or worrying about who's the one true and who's a charlatan. Right? So that's how I see holistic or worldview thinking. Essentially, every single thing that you find in the world, every single thing, as crazy as it may be, every single event has its place and happened for a reason, and it's there to teach you something. Every single hardship and traumatic or negative event that you experience has its place and is actually there to teach you and help you in one way or the other, to help you grow, to help you maybe realize how strong you actually are, something like that. But the sadness is we fail to essentially take the time to process these events and find as people say, the silver lining or the good in them. Tragically, instead, falling prey to only seeing the dark or the bad. So, by essentially implementing this worldview or this holistic thinking, you'll, along with big picture thinking, I'm hoping that you'll essentially be able to snap yourself out of whatever intense moment you're currently experiencing, put things in perspective, and maybe even create the space necessary for divine intervention to grant you wisdom and show you that it's actually fucking awesome for you. Anyways, as always, hope you guys got something out of this. And until next time.